Okay, so we're going to start the meeting. This is Michael Manjos, Chairman of the Board of Finance. Today is April 9th, 7 o'clock. I hereby call the meeting to order of the Board of Finance. I'm going to go through and roll call everybody. Just respond in the affirmative that you can hear me and that you can speak. So we'll start with Rebecca.
Here.
Dane. Dane, can you hear us?
He's muted.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Okay, excellent. Steve?
I'm here.
Craig?
I'm here.
No?
Yep, I'm here, and you've got a terrible echo, Mike.
Yeah, I can hear that.
If everyone who's not speaking can mute their line, that'll solve that echo.
That'll help, you're right. All right, is that any better?
Yes.
Okay. For staff, we have Heidi and Ron are also. I don't think we have any other anticipated speakers besides Ken for selectmen here as well. I hereby declare we and call this meeting to order. A copy of the agenda and any related materials have been posted and can be found on the town's website, www.monroe.org, for public inspection. This public meeting is being conducted remotely in compliance with Section 1 of the Governor Lamont's Executive Order 7B, dated March 14th, using GoToMeeting electronic conferencing technology. Using this technology, the public shall participate in real time via computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone using access information set forth in the meeting agenda. Please be advised that each meeting has unique participation information, so please be sure you have access to the correct meeting. Notice is hereby given that only 250 participants may access the remote electronic public meeting at one time. Access to this meeting using technology is granted solely by the technology provider on a first access basis and is not controlled by the town of Monroe. While it is anticipated we will not exceed the participant limit for this meeting, should it appear that we are approaching said limit, so that any member of the public is denied access to this meeting, I, as chair, reserve the right to adjourn and continue the meeting at a later date using technology appropriate to ensure all members of the public may participate. Please notice the following regarding remote electronic public meeting. This is a meeting is being real time. This meeting is open to the public. Any member of the public may listen or view to this meeting anonymously. That this meeting is being recorded, and while we ask you that you mute your microphones unless recognized to speak, that you do or is displayed on your screen may become part of the recording. The recording shall be posted on the town website within 7 days. That the recording shall be made available to the public within a reasonable time. The meeting shall have the following standard parliamentary procedure. However, I ask participants to follow the special rules. Please mute your microphone to reduce background noise if you're not speaking. Prior to speaking on each occasion, each speaker clearly state their name and title for the record. Use of the chat feature is prohibited and will not be considered during the meeting as use. As set forth in the agenda, this meeting will not feature public participation. All right, I think that's all the legalese we have to cover. I know it's been a little bit since we got together. I think we just want to bring everybody up to speed if they're not up to speed, but just to make sure we're all on the same page. There's been a number of directives from the governor. I'll let Ken hit on most of that stuff because he's been working hand in hand with the governor and with our rep. We also had action taken by town council pertaining to the governor's orders as far as the charter revision or the process change in how we're going to. That's all been taken care of. Ken, do you want to kind of give them a quick synopsis?
Sure, Mike, I would. I'd be glad to. I think you all have in your packet a memo that I sent yesterday that goes into this, goes into actually a couple of different things. And I guess we'll just hit upon the first item that Mike's referring to regarding the budget process. So there are a couple of executive orders that impact the budget process. One was Executive Order 7C, which automatically extended the remaining budget deadlines that were out there. There was another one, which was actually, there's a typo on my memo. I apologize. It was 7I. That one specifically addressed the referendum, and that order actually compelled the town council to authorize the Board of Finance to make the final adoption of a budget. It precluded us from conducting a referendum, something I and the town attorney looked into extensively to make sure that we did not have any option in that regard, and we do not. So given that, with, again, a lot of help from the town attorney, we've crafted a resolution. It's Town Council Resolution 20-43, whereby they, in compliance with the governor's orders, adopted a schedule as follows. And I don't know, Heidi, if you can bring up my memo at the same time or not, but I'll just kind of, let's see. Yeah, go down a little bit more there, right there. So the process as now set forth per that resolution that's in compliance with the orders of the governor. The first part basically just takes the normal Board of Finance process in preparing its budget and pushes it out 1 month to May 20th. So your budget deadline that was April 20th is now May 20th. Prior to that, the board will still have to conduct its one public hearing, and that has to be done electronically. So there will be one opportunity for a public hearing where the public can comment on the budget as it currently stands. And then by May 20th, you will have to vote and finalize your proposed budget. And then, as would be the normal process, that will be published on the website, a summary in the newspaper, and that'll be done within a week after that date, so no later than May 27th. That process will also include another publication of an email address or another means for the public to submit comments in the budget once you have actually created a budget. And then, Heidi, if you could just scroll to the next page. After that occurs, sometime in a window between June 2nd and June 5th. Sorry, I don't think Heidi, can you scroll down one page? Thanks, right there. So between June 2nd and June 5th, this is where the council has authorized the Board of Finance to actually adopt the budget. And that will have to be done at another electronic public meeting where the public will have another opportunity to be heard. As I said, there will be opportunity for email input in addition. And at that meeting, you will need to vote to adopt the annual budget in lieu of the referendum. And as is your normal role, you will also vote to set the mill rate. And then after that, the budget the final budget will be published. So the balance of my memo, I guess, Mike, I'll hold off because I think you probably want to address this first before we get into other matters.
Yeah, that's perfect, Ken. Thank you.
Sure.
So basically, fundamentally, we have to be voting between June 2nd and June 5th. So we'll basically just back up the dates. What I think we should probably do is, now that we have a firm time frame, just kind of look at a schedule working backwards and figure what we want to do accordingly. We've got a couple things to discuss tonight regarding cash flow and budgeting based on some of the executive orders we've also come down, which are going to probably affect some of the revenue for next year. And we also discussed revenue prior. So just scroll up one more time, Heidi. So basically, we want to have something done by the 20th. Is that what right?
Yes, you need to schedule the one electronic public hearing, which can be certainly its own meeting if you so desire. But by that same date, you also need to actually finalize the Board of Finance's proposed budget.
Right. I mean, I would think we'd want to do it a little bit ahead of that day, just in case there's a public outpouring and we want to get more input, you know. So I would suggest we look at maybe May 14th, which is the Thursday before. Unless anybody else has any other ideas. But if we target May 14th, it gives us a couple of days of wiggle room if we need it. Does that make sense to everybody?
Steve Kirsch, Board of Finance. Yes, that makes sense, Mike.
Okay. So
Mike,
basically,
this is Craig.
yes, Craig.
Yeah, I'm okay with the 14th. The only thing I would throw out there is that, you know, should we have the public hearing maybe a little bit sooner? So it gives us a little, you know, I don't know if we need more time or not to react to anything that's brought up
Well,
from
what I
there.
was going to
That's
suggest,
my only suggestion.
I was going to suggest, since this is kind of, in my opinion, an additional public participation, I was going to suggest that we schedule our first public hearing for the 23rd of April, which is 2 weeks from tonight. And that gives, you know, then it'll be 3 weeks for the next one. So we can get some public input early on, because typically we do a public input right at the beginning. Obviously, with everything going on, we push that back, but I think we're in a position to do it now. So what I was thinking, you know, based on the spirit of getting as much input as possible, we would schedule 2.
I like the sound of that.
Anybody else think that's
Steve
reason?
Kirsch, I concur.
Yeah, and I would think, you know, the 23rd at least gives us, again, the way things are changing, I think, you know, 2 weeks from now, we might be in a different frame of mind or have some more information at least. So if we could tentatively pencil in the 23rd and then the 14th for 2 public hearings, it gives us 2 weeks in between to get work done. Ken, does that make sense from your standpoint?
Yeah, I think that's perfectly fine.
Okay.
And I appreciate you affording the public, additional opportunity.
No, I think, I mean, again, this is unique situations. We want to give as much, you know, input availability. Not everybody's tech savvy and might want to write us a note. Who knows? But I'd rather give them the opportunity in many ways possible and as much time. So we'll give 2 weeks notice to have the first one and then 3 weeks to have another shot at it.
And if I could just ask Ken Keller, First Selectman, I keep forgetting that we have to do that before each time we talk. I would recommend, although it's not required by the order or by the council's resolution, I would ask this board to concur that we perhaps open up the email address for written submission to be received by the board prior to that public hearing, so that it's available that night. So if someone is not available to actually call in for that public hearing, you'll have that opportunity that we had talked about earlier. We could make that live as early as tomorrow.
As Mike Manjos, yeah, I would agree. If we could get it up tomorrow, I would get it up tomorrow, and then let's start promoting it out there. So I have the longer time and the more opportunities for input, the better this will be. So I don't know who we have to talk to make that happen, but I'll leave that in your hands, because as long as everybody else.
Yeah, it's actually the work is behind the scenes is, I think, is done, if not almost. It literally, we just need to communicate to the public. So I think, I say tomorrow, forgetting that it's a holiday.
It's Good Friday. Yeah, it's a holiday. So let's shoot for Monday.
On Monday, we'll plan on notice. Presuming you're okay with it, Mike, we will notice your public hearing, and then
Yes.
or at least get towards that goal of noticing it and getting the email address out there for everybody.
Okay. Terrific.
Mike, this is Steve Kirsch, Board of Finance.
Agreement on it.
Can I just ask a question? Is that email address something we'll be able to go into as board members and see ourselves? Is that something all the public will see what other people wrote? How's that going to work?
So the email address will, it'll be one email address that will automatically route every message to the entire Board of Finance, my office, and the finance director, Heidi and Ron, the finance director and the deputy finance director, so that everyone has the information. And then you could certainly, you could either take those emails and publish them in advance on the website as input to the public hearing, or they could certainly be read into the record, however you prefer.
My thought was to read them into the record, because traditionally we would have people speak or write in. And if we read it into the record, then it's consistent. I think that makes the most sense.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody?
Yeah, that makes
Ken Keller, First Selectman. But my point, Steve, is that everyone will get all the emails. So it's you certainly don't want to risk something getting lost in the cyberland, as it were.
Thank you, Ken. Yes, that makes perfectly good sense, and that sounds like really something that's really will be workable. And I concur to publishing that that email on Monday, as was mentioned.
All right. Then the last thing I want to finalize is I'd like to then now let's lock down the rest of our schedule. So we're agreeing on the 14th to be a finish date. How does everybody feel about continuing on a weekly basis till then? Do we want to? What's everybody's thought process here?
So Steve Kirsch, Board of Finance. So Mike, you're saying that on the 14th, we'll have both a public hearing and do our finalization in that same meeting? Or will
Yes.
we meet? Okay. Okay.
Can anybody else speak in and just, I want to get some input from everybody on scheduling, time, how much time. John, specifically, what are you thinking on time frame?
Sorry, Mike, I couldn't find the unmute button. John Osashevsky, Vice Chair. So I guess it depends how much input we get from the public. If we want to have meetings every week, it doesn't hurt to schedule them, and then we could also skip them if we don't need them. But giving the opportunity for people to speak twice, as well as the email, we may get lots of good stuff from that, and we want to spend the time to process it correctly. So yeah, I think scheduling it every week, and then we'll just do week by week, decide if we keep them or not.
I think that makes a lot of sense. So if we'll pencil in the Thursdays straight through, that'll give us five more meetings. And then if we get closer and we see there's more to be done or less to be done, then we can make decisions from there. Everybody good with that?
I'm good with the dates. What time, Mike?
I'm good with 6. Unfortunately, I apologize for having to move this one, but I had a filming I had to do. My job got in the way again. So we were recording tonight. So normally 6 o'clock works great for me if that works for everybody else. All right. Well, so I'm going to assume everybody's okay with that. All right. So 2 specific things I wanted to go through before one is got to do with the governor's orders. So when we had spoken last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was exactly, we had talked about being concerned on budgets and revenue based on what's going on here. And I don't know if we've gotten any feedback. Ron, have you gotten anything pulled together or talked to anybody with that?
I'm sorry, Mike. What can you run by that question one more time?
Yeah, we were talking about revenue estimations the last time, and where we
Yeah,
felt
so
there might be some concerns.
at this point, I've talked to various department heads, and at this point, it's a little early to gauge based on no historical, reference for this, and we're only 3-4 weeks in at this point. Right now, after discussing it with the chief of police regarding private duty, he sees it's been relatively flat, so there's been no change. But as he said,
Okay.
that could change a couple weeks out. Parks and Rec right now is projecting nothing in the short term, but that could change.
Right.
Their revenues are basically zero at this point. So
Right. I'm looking more towards I don't know how they recognize their revenue, to be honest. I mean, their July, August revenue, is that mostly coming from the pool?
Yeah, so the general fund budgeted revenue comes from the pool. So that's a big question mark. And even if the pool can reopen, will anyone buy passes? That's a tough one to call at this point.
Correct. This is going to be a new world, so we're not really sure what the social distancing as pools is going to be look like. Yeah. Okay. What about town hall, town clerk?
Town clerk, she was tracking okay, but I don't know if she's a lot of that. There could be a lag there.
I was going to say, I would assume there's a lag based on
That's the way I'm kind of
sales.
reading, because
right. Housing sales are probably lagging, and they'll get revenue a couple months out. But I'm assuming, or most of the revenue that comes in July and August might also be from sales. Again, we should look into what the lag time is on that revenue. Because if we're going to look at that.
So in the cash flow projections regarding that, I did there were some assumptions at the bottom there. I did project her revenue was going to be cut in half.
Got it. Okay.
Through the summer and into the early fall.
All right. Well, let's touch on that just so we know. All right. So let's this all kind of wraps together. So let's wrap it together. So the governor has given an order, which I think is in there. I don't remember the number of it. But fundamentally, it gives the town two options as far as taxes go. You have it in front of you, Ron. I don't know if we want to read it to everybody, or if everyone's familiar, has had a chance to read it.
Well, I think Ken, did
it.
you want to go through that?
You
That
wanna
was
go
part
through
of
it,
Ken's
Ken?
packet. I don't know if you wanted to go through that executive order relative to the
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
options with property taxes.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Ken Kellogg, First Selectman. So it starts on page 2 of my memo. It's Governor's Order 7S, and that creates another mandate that the town, in this case, select either one or both of two different options. It is a decision that ultimately is going to be made by the town council. It is a legislative body decision. However, I certainly think it's appropriate that the Board of Finance, I'm asking that the Board of Finance provide its input and recommendation on this matter, so the council has the benefit of your expertise in this regard. In the package that I sent over, in addition to all of the governor's orders, I also did include guidance that we received from the State Office of Policy and Management. That guidance was just received this week. We continue to get more clarification. I know Deb Hine, the tax collector, has been trying to get more clarification on certain nuances as well. And last but not least, our town attorney has been reviewing it, has been collaborating with others in the state to try and get a handle, on some of these issues. But essentially, there are two different options. And again, we have to pick one or both. Option one is a deferment program, and it extends the normal grace period. So as you know, taxes that are due July 1st normally get a grace period until August 1st before interest starts to accrue. That grace period would basically get extended all the way to October 1st of this year without any interest. It may require paperwork that would have to be completed and processed by the tax collector's office, and attestations by the tax collector of their economic impacts, although it may also be opened up to all taxpayers without distinction. It does not deal with anything regarding past due taxes, so anything that Deb has had that she's been dealing with, there's basically no refunds from things prior to April 1st that she has to concern herself with, even if that option were to be selected. Option two is a low interest rate program. So that program addresses the statutory interest rate, which is 18% or 1.5% per month, and it reduces it to 3% per year, excuse me, or 0.25% per month for the period of August 3rd. So again, the taxes due on July 1st normally would get a grace period till August 3rd. So the interest rate, if this program were to be selected, would go to 0.25% per month starting August 3rd through to October 2nd. There is no eligibility criteria with the exception of landlords, and any taxes that were already delinquent as of March 10th would still be subject to the lower interest rate, but not until April 1st through July 1st. The taxes that are applicable are all the Monroe taxes, so real estate, motor vehicle, and personal property are all included. It does have a provision in the order that says if payments have been escrowed, that the escrow agent must remit payments on the normal timetable. However, there is this carve out that says so long as the borrower remains current on their mortgage or is in a forbearance or a deferment program. And then it doesn't really, if they're not, it doesn't really address it. So that's one of the things that I know the town attorney is putting a lot of research and effort into, and trying to get some input through Deb's association as well. So that's, I mean, that's really the recap of a relatively complex set of documents. I just want to acknowledge that Ron and Heidi, I know, were working extensively on doing cash flow models based on the original request from the Board of Finance, and this just ramped it up quite a bit, and I know that they did a great job trying to prepare something so that this board, should there be different assumptions that you want to have them consider, they should be able to run those models for you. So I just want to thank them for all their efforts, because they've really been hard at work for many days at this. So thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Ken. Yeah, no, I mean, no question about it. I mean, the good news is now, I mean, in the packet, I don't know if anybody got a chance to pull it through. They did do a couple different scenario modeling. So fundamentally, the town council is going to be looking for us to make a recommendation, being the finance board. We'd like to get that to them by next week, so we don't have to make a decision on this tonight, but I would encourage everybody to review this, review the cash flow models, see what we want to get more detail on. But on a quick read, I'll give my personal opinion already, because I've been through this a few times, is the low interest rate program I understand, and I can see where it would make sense. The deferment program scares me fairly dramatically, because if you look at the cash flow models, if the only requirement would be that you've been affected by the COVID, I would make it a pretty easy argument that almost everyone's been affected. There's a huge amount of unemployment, there's a huge amount of reduced hours, there's a huge amount of effect for almost everybody. So I would think we would see large participation in the deferment. And if you look at the cash flow models, if we deferred everything, till October, we would run out of cash in September. So the town's not, despite having a healthy fund balance, a healthy fund balance is about a 6-week run out of expenses. So this gives us our monthly outlays. If this was mandated, which it is not, we would have to find other ways to raise revenue, cut expenses, do some draconian things that we certainly don't want to be doing. So certainly without clarification, I'm certainly comfortable with the interest rate program. While it does affect us next year, it's not going to be nearly as dramatic or dangerous for the town as the deferment program could be. I don't want anybody else to pipe in on this one.
Yeah, Steve Kirsch, Board of Finance, can we put this on our agenda for discussion and maybe a vote at our meeting next week? You're talking to mute, Mike.
Sorry about that. Yeah, no, it'll definitely be on the agenda for next week, but I want everybody to, be familiar with it before then and look at the cash flows. If we want to model out anything else, we certainly can. I mean, they did put a qualifier in there for the escrows, but the part that also concerns me is if there are qualifications, we don't really have the manpower to start taking in a lot of applications, processing them, making that decision. If a decision's made, who gets to adjudicate that decision? Who gets to? I mean, there's a lot of complications I can see to this. It also talks on the escrows, but who's going to chase that? Who's going to? Assuming a lot of banks are making accommodations on mortgages and deferments. I don't have any specific data on it, but just talking to some of the bankers out there, I know a lot of places are running those kind of programs. So this could be very risky for the town. So it will definitely be on the agenda. If anybody wants to talk about it or questions or go through it tonight, I'm happy and ready to do that. While we don't have to make a decision, I don't think conversation hurts ever.
Yeah, Mike, can I jump in quick? Ken Kellogg, First Selectman. I just wanted to footnote that we certainly don't need an answer this evening. However, I would ask that you plan on coming up with a recommendation for your meeting on the 16th, because the council, we're required to file our decision by April 25th. So my anticipation is calling for a special town council meeting on the week of the 20th. So if you could have a recommendation or some insight for council by then, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I think no question we will have it for next week decided, but is there anything else that people want to see? I mean, I think Ron and Heidi did a great job putting this together on a pretty short window. So it gives us a good run out. Obviously, April, May, and June are very big months for our debt service, and there's balloon payments on the Board of Ed side, so there's a lot of outflow this time of year, especially in that. You can see while we're running a strong balance, beginning of April, by July 1, we do get down to a lower level.
Mike, this is Debbie. Can
Yes,
I interject for a minute? Just so you know that I know we've projected in there would be no income for July, August, and September. And I'm not doing any, I don't care either way, because Quality will have the programs for both. But they have to have their taxes paid by October 1st. Because if they go to October 2nd, the interest rate goes back to July 1st. OPM clarified that today. So people will be paying. They're not going to wait until October 1st to pay their taxes, because they are in jeopardy if the mail is delayed one day or whatever. They will be looking at 6% interest on the unpaid balance if they wait to October 2nd. It's not 1.5% starting October 1st. It goes back to the original due date of July 1st.
Got it.
Mike, this is Ron. So Ron Banowski, Director of Finance. Can I jump in there for a sec?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So in that worst case scenario, number 2, all those cash, the tax collections were dumped into October. It was a worst case scenario, assuming we got it at the very end of September and didn't have access to those funds until October 1st. That's
Right.
That's why it was modeled that way. But
Right, and
certainly
that's
a
the right way
worst
to
case.
model it. So I mean, again, we've done a worst case scenario, a best case scenario, and a kind of mid range scenario, just so we can all look at it. Again, I think it's going to. I think the other analysis that we were talking about is if they were due on July 1 and a quarter point interest is not a significant dollar on the typical tax bill. Is the other way to look at it. So, I mean, we were talking about it today on a $10,000 tax bill, 3 months interest is $75.
Yeah, John Osashevsky, Vice Chair. So I like the modeling that was done. There's a lot of work in it. I appreciate that. I think the escrow is something we may want to spend a little more time on. I don't know what percentage of our taxes come through the escrow, but somewhere between the worst case and using a full escrow of what comes in July is the right number, maybe. So I'd like to see what that would be, just as a comparison.
Yeah, this is Craig. This is what, 85% comes from escrow?
Mike, this is Debbie
Yes.
Heim, the tax collector. Our escrow for July is around $6 million.
You broke up on me there. What was that number?
Sorry, it's about $16 million.
Got it. So the second model, $6 million in July coming in.
Hey, Mike, it's Rebecca. Can you hear me?
Yes.
On the worst case scenario, can Ron just review what were the assumptions he used to get those numbers?
Ron, you got it.
Okay, this is Ron Banowski, Director of Finance. So did you want me to run through top to bottom, Rebecca?
Yeah, like I guess I'm just wondering, so for the deferment program, right? So like what assumption of people paying is this people paying in September only and not in July or August?
So at the time this model was run, and I think it's still unclear, although Deb was on a conference call today. It was unsure if people were in arrears with their escrow payments, whether those were going to have to be submitted at all. So I think there's some clarity on that, although I don't think Deb has anything in writing yet. So this assumption was that we got nothing in July, August, and September, and everything was paid at the very end of September and wouldn't be available until October. And again, this was an absolute worst case scenario, which likely would not happen. Does that make sense?
Sorry, I think my phone keeps getting muted. Yep, I'm just following. Yep.
And I think the assumptions he's got listed at the bottom there being assuming a 50% revenue on town clerk and license and fees revenue, assuming normal EMS and police duty. So that's fundamentally keeping things on the other revenues, I guess, at some level of normal.
Okay.
Again, we were discussing EMS earlier today. I mean, what I'm hearing anecdotally, there's been a little bit less activity People, I think, are, reluctant to go to the hospital, so I think they're not calling EMS unless it's truly an emergency, and you certainly have less car accidents and a few other things that might have caused some calls. So I think in general, the call volume is going to be down.
Yeah, Mike, Ken Keller, First Select. We don't really have solid numbers on that yet, but I mean, certainly I've heard throughout the region that that's kind of the experience that we're seeing in the hospital ERs, and it would follow that EMS volume is like that as well. And anecdotally, I'm hearing that from our crews, but again, it's things can change quickly, and but I think you're correct that there's a possibility that those numbers could be lower. But we don't even have a full month of data to go on, so.
Got it, Craig. Heidi having trouble speaking and getting muted. Can you see if you can do it on your side?
Hey, Mike, can you hear me?
There you go.
All right. Yeah, I've been trying to jump in, but there was a couple things, but you guys covered it, so I appreciate it. And you started talking about EMS, and I'm just now I can jump in and just say something. From a cash flow perspective, something came to my attention just recently, and it was on the school Board of Education side. And what I want to just point out was that it brought to attention that we have like an after-school program that for the teachers. And so, from my understanding, that the people that are to care for the children, even though they're not at school and they're paying, but taking care of the kids in their home, but they're still getting paid. And I was wondering if we could just really take a look at like who are you still paying from a Board of Education standpoint that really is not performing a function, but are still getting paid.
So there has been some other guidance that's come down from the governor, and I know the interim superintendent, Mr. Kabsa, and Ron had been working specifically with the bus company to negotiate that. The dictate from the governor was to keep everything in place where possible. I think maybe, Ron, do you want to speak to that, or can Joe speak to that?
Joe Kabsa, acting superintendent. Craig, I think the program you're talking about is the Monroe Early Learning Center. Just so you understand, that money comes through special revenue. It's not part of the. It does not come through the money to pay those workers. Comes from the through the payments that the employees make to send their kids to the daycare program. So it does not go through the operating budget. It goes through the special revenue account. So it is a self-sufficient, self-sustaining program. It's not taking taxpayer dollars into it.
Okay, understand. And like I said, it just came to me. I just want to know we're taking a look at things that might be being paid out that we could take a look at to help with that. But if it's outside the operating budget, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, there is a lot of discussion going on at the state level on, and I think everybody's probably aware that the governor pushed back the date today, but did not close them for the year, where a lot of states have done that. So I think we're at May 20th at this point. But the governor's position is he wants everything to be left in place so we could start up, I believe. I'm not convinced that's really going to happen. But we got to just see, and we are following the executive orders as they come down. I don't necessarily agree with a lot of them, but we are going to have to follow those orders till we see it. We are doing a negotiation with the bus company because there are specific things that basically says you can negotiate that. So Ron and Mr. Cobbs are working on that. So we'll keep us updated as that goes along. That is more for this year. So that'll hopefully help us with the shortfall we were looking at for this year. But again, I know they got a proposal this week and they're going to meet with them next week. So that's, we will keep you updated as that develops. But that is still on the Board of Ed side, but they've been very good keeping us in the loop. All right. Ron, is there anything else you want to touch on this, on the cash flow model?
No, not unless anyone has any other questions. But again, this is something I was looking to hand off to you guys, at some point, either over the weekend or early next week. So if you guys wanted to work with it yourselves, you certainly could.
Yeah, if you could supply us the model, that'd be great. I love to play around with these things and, run different scenarios. So if we could share that with the board and then everybody can run assumptions to their heart's content.
Yeah, my thought was to share it with you, Mike, and if you wanted to, disseminate it from there, that's
Perfect.
use it as a
No,
working tool.
I will do that because I think it's good to, somebody might want to find something or think about an area that we haven't thought of. So the more eyes we get on this, I think the better. I know, the doomsday scenario is unlikely, but, if you asked me 2 months ago, the scenario we're in is unlikely. So I'm sure a lot of are being similar to mine. And right now, cash conservation is key. And it's what we're all doing. So I think we have to be very careful of protecting revenue wherever we can and keeping very careful ideas on our outflows as well. So I know the first selectman has, prevented anything from major that was optional going out, and we are keeping everything going. But I just think we have to look at cash conservation because this will be bumpy for a while. Rates are not coming back. Even when we do get back to somewhat normal, there's obviously going to be diminished revenues in a lot of places because there's a lot of people who are dramatically affected. So I think we're going to have to go in with the assumptions that revenues are going to be less and collections are going to be less, which could make the mill rate very challenging. So I think we're going to have to start keeping that in mind as we're heading forward. All right. What else do we want to touch on tonight, guys? I mean, again, we didn't really get into the meat of potatoes because it's hard with everything else going on to have a normal budget conversation. Because obviously the times are not normal. So, I mean, does it make sense to look at anything at this point? Do we just, get through the next week or two and hope we have better clarity? What's everybody's thoughts on how we proceed?
Mike, Steve Kirsch, Board of Finance. I have two things that are, I guess, follow up. The first is actually for the Board of Ed. We had asked a number of questions at our original review with them. One of which was mine. I wanted to get a list of priority restorations that they would have if those cuts, could in any way be restored. So I wondered if we could
That's in the
get that.
packet.
Oh, it is? Okay,
It's in the packet. Yeah, that was one of the first sheets there. They put it in there. I think they put it in order.
Okay. And the second thing, and maybe at the March 9th town council meeting, the first selectman presented some road work information, but did not have the 2020 road plan. I don't know if that's been made available yet. But if not, I'd like to request it. And those were my two items.
I guess my question at this point is, is road work feasible at this point in our lives? I wouldn't believe you'll be sending a lot of crews out there, but maybe Ken, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I can speak to that. Ken Kellogg, First Selectman. So Public Works Department was in the process of finalizing the game plan. Normally, it's not locked down until the spring because they do last minute inspections and kind of refine things. And then this crisis hit upon us. So at this point, what I've asked for Public Works is the work that is, really, I guess maybe shovel ready is the best phrase. In other words, work where the drainage work is all complete, everything's ready to go, and there's not, there's clarity that we could clearly knock it out versus work that requires significant more prep work, drainage, et cetera. So we can kind of look at those two different models. At this point, I would want to discuss further with this board minimally on how we proceed, because while we have we have funds that are appropriated and authorized, we have not issued those bonds yet. So I do want to make sure that we're all comfortable with that. I know that earlier on there was a lot of lack of clarity in the bond market, and certain things were undersubscribed, and I think we wanted to just get a little breathing room and make sure that we know that we're going to be able to not undertake something that's going to create a problem down the road. So I think we could certainly Public Works can certainly continue with the prioritization. It will take probably longer to do some of those inspections. Our Public Works crews are working, but they are going out in smaller, they're not going out in the same truck, and sites are being done with as few crews as possible. So it may take a lot longer to do the same job because of the way they need to work to be safe. And then we would have to, we'd also have to integrate how that would work relative to contractors that do some of our paving as well. So it's an ongoing conversation that I'm having with the Public Works Department leadership in terms of how we kind of get our arms around approaching a paving season when we're really not sure at this point what our operating budget looks like, and we're not really sure what our appetite for issuing bonds is, or what our appetite for additional bonding might be. I'm kind of waiting for this process to, clarify a lot of that. So.
No, that's a great point, Ken. I think that's going to be a challenge. I mean, obviously, I don't think it would make sense in this current environment to even think about going into the bond market. There's just too much uncertainty right now. Again, in 2 or 3 weeks, maybe we get a little more light at the end of the tunnel. But from people I'm talking to, I've got a lot of people who are, looking at the fall before we get some full normalcy. So it's going to be, and especially until we get some clarity in this cash flow things, I wouldn't be supporting a big spending project right now, even though I love doing roads. But it's a little scary right now to push that kind of outflow out until we get some better clarity on what we get from the government, what we get from the state, what we get from, all these programs. To me, there's just way too much flux to commit to that kind of a thing right now, would be my opinion. But everybody else feel free to jump in. I have no problem getting a schedule from them and an idea of what the priorities would be next when we do start up.
Yes.
But I don't see sending them out on the roads right now.
So this is Steve Kirsch, Board of Finance. Yeah, Mike, that's really my issue. Is I wanted to see what they were thinking about doing. I recognize there's any number of issues, Ken enumerated a whole bunch of them. But I was looking for the input, especially, we have a budget in front of us, and I'm wondering, the kinds of things that went into that number. So yeah, I'm just looking at it for
I'm happy to have him come in on our next meeting. I mean, I love getting some more clarity on that, and I've never felt like we've gotten a good idea of this is the road, this is the cost, this is the priority 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
That's where I'm at. I will send you.
I think this is a perfect time for that. We got plenty of time to do that.
That was my point entirely. Back to my first comment. I do apologize. I missed the page in that file from the Board of Ed. So I appreciate their work in getting that list. That's all I've got.
On your side there, or?
So John Ostraszewski, Vice Chair. So Mike, you asked about what else to talk about tonight. I think you're right. There's too many things that are unknown, especially on the revenue side. We've got lots of questions, not a lot of answers yet. We may get clarity over more time. So, I mean, I really don't think there's anything high priority that we need to process tonight.
It's exactly my feeling. I just, again, I don't want to be the one just saying it all, so feel free to jump in.
Mike, this is Ron Banofsky, Director of Finance. Okay for me to speak?
Please.
Okay, so Joe Cobza, the interim superintendent, and Jack Ceccolini and myself and various other people did go through a list of some questions that you guys had raised a couple weeks back for the Board of Ed. We do have them summarized. It probably needs a little fine tuning, but it didn't make it into this week's package. We can either discuss some of it now, or we can just get it into next week's package and discuss it then.
I mean, up to you. How detailed, how much is it? I mean, is it? I don't remember there that many open points.
There's one question that was raised. I'll just go through some of the things quick that
Yeah, hit them and then we'll see what we get into.
Much or as little detail as you want. The question was raised, what are we budgeted at for the diesel and heating fuel rates? We locked into those back in February, so it was before this, before oil tanked. So, and we're locked in through August 31st of 21. So we're locked in at about $2.05 a gallon for heating oil, $2.07 a gallon for diesel, and that's Board of Ed and town. And included in the package, I've got year-to-date actuals for the last 3 years in the utility accounts and what was budgeted for this year. So again, I can go through it now, or I could just provide it in so you can look at the
Why don't you
schedule.
provide it in the package for next week, and then if there's questions on it, people can hit it. Again, I think as long as we have the details. I think my biggest question was on the thing, and of course you were on top of things and locked in like you always do. Who knew?
Yeah, and the other question, there was a question also raised, when will we get the premium rates for insurance? That actually got, they're holding the rates through October 1st, the current rates for health insurance.
All right.
The only thing we don't have clarity on is at that time, will they do a catch-up increase to account for the first 3 months? Or will they just hold that, their projected increase and just roll it forward? If you understand what I'm saying. So they're going to hold the rates flat through October 1st. We just don't know how that's going to affect the increase come October 1st.
Or first, right. They might put a bigger increase in to make up for it. Is there anything else on our list there?
Yeah, I mean, there were other things that Joe addressed. I don't know if it's probably more efficient to handle them next week, unless you would like to.
No, that's fine.
Put
Put them in the packet, and we got plenty of time. I mean, put them in the packet. We'll cover it next week. It's fine. Also,
Yeah, that's good. I know some the questions were about the roles and responsibilities of the K-5 coordinators. It'd probably be easier for you to digest it. I have a list of bullets of what they were doing. It's probably a lot easier if you look at it. So I can send that. There was questions about accreditation and, you know, budgetary impacts to accreditation at the high school. Again, probably a lot easier to synthesize if you have it in front of you.
yeah, no, perfect. Yeah, we'll put it in the packet for next week, and then if there's questions, we'll cover it. I'm sure we're going to be spending a lot of time together, no matter what happens going forward. So we have plenty of time to cover it. All right. I'll just run through anybody else. Rebecca, was there anything else you wanted to cover or question? That's Rebecca. Okay. Craig?
Sorry. Hi. I'm here. Stupid *6.
I know. I hate
Yeah,
this
no,
stuff. I hate this stuff.
I'm good. I don't have any questions. I've reviewed everything for this meeting, but nothing's coming up right now.
Okay, perfect. Craig, anything on your side?
Yep. This is Craig. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Mike, the only question I have is with the meeting or our next meeting, would it be next week, Thursday?
That's what I would propose, yeah.
Okay. No, no other questions.
Jane, anything from you?
This is Dan. Nothing from me.
Steve, I think we covered you. I think we covered John.
All good here.
All right. All right. So I think that's all we got to cover tonight. Again, as things come down from the governor, Ken's been very good at sharing them, posting them on the site. I think everybody's seeing we have had cases in town, but so far not terrible compared to some of our neighbors. So whatever we're all doing, staying home is helping a little bit. So we're all getting used to it. I don't think I've ever spent this much time in town in my life, but my wife's not that happy about it, but we're getting things done. So based on that, someone want to make a motion?
Steve Kirsch, Board of Finance, move to adjourn.
We have a second?
John Oshetsky, Vice Chair, second.
Terrific. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Everybody stay safe, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Take care.
To everyone.
Thanks, everybody.